everybody. It's Pastor Jake. I am here on this rather dreary Taco Tuesday in Louisville off of Route 121 at a place called Tortas DF. Now, I had low expectations for what I would find here because it isn't primary. They do tortas. That's like what the main thing that they're trying to sell, and they look amazing, but that's not my gig, right? So I came here in search of Al Pastor tacos, as always, and lo and behold, they had a spit. So they're doing the pastor right. I did not expect this, and I'm very excited about it. They smell legit. They look great. We've got two salsas. I've also already got the hiccups because he asked me, did I want the spicy or the not spicy salsa? And I told him I wanted the spicy salsa. Never mind, I want both salsas. So then I was interested after I got here to the car and dipped my finger in both of them. And both of them are very spicy, which is great. I like spicy, but I've already got the hiccups. So I'm going to give you a minute, and I'm going to give myself a minute, and I'll be back to report. But I'm super stoked. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so here's the deal. I feel like Tortas DF needs another chance. And this is why. I'm eating these tacos very early to eat tacos. It's 10:30. And that is because my schedule is weird today and I had to do it earlier. So, I think that I was probably the first person to order a pastor taco today. So I got what is essentially like the most dried out parts because it's on a spit, right? So it's just like cooking and cooking and cooking and cooking. And so I got the dried out bits. Now, that being said, I don't really mind that much, except that it was all that kind of meat. If that is sort of sprinkled into the rest of it, I think that's amazing. It's like the burnt bits of macaroni and cheese, it's good stuff. Or if you roast Brussels sprouts, which if you do not like Brussels sprouts, you should try roasting them. And then if you roast them on high temp, then like the individual leaves that fall off that you've coated in olive oil and salt and pepper, that's all you need to do, by the way. Then they flake off and then they turn into like little Brussels sprout chips. So good. So good. Anyway, overall it was just okay, but it was just okay because the meat was all dried out. I'm going to give them another shot. The salsa's very spicy. Pretty good. Okay. I've had more flavorful salsas, but like I said, I'm gonna give this another. I'm gonna come like in the middle of the lunch rush and see if it's better. I can't imagine that it won't be. At any rate, Tortas DF. The tortas look amazing. I think that I saw on Yelp somebody posted a picture of a gordita. I thought that was something that Taco Bell made up, and I was never interested. But their gorditas look super delightful. So get you one of those. All right, so there's that. Tortas DF here on 121. I wanted to follow up on Sunday's sermon a little bit for you. Because I ask Colleen all the time. Colleen and I have a conversation about Sunday's sermon. And she remarked, and I actually got an email to this extent as well, that that what I preached on about the being shepherds in training and sort of learning to love what the shepherd loves was a pretty basic message. That was what Colleen said. She called me basic. Well, she didn't. I'm calling myself basic. And the email was like, well, I feel like I'm already doing some of this stuff. How can I do that better? So I feel like let me address like the how-tos. That was sort of the top level line of what we call sort of discipleship, right? Which is to follow after Jesus and learn to love the things that Jesus loves, right? Learn to love outside of your comfort zone. Learn to love those that would otherwise be your enemies. Learn to love this planet, all of these sorts of things. But sort of baked into that is something that is a lot more sort of boots on the ground, and I've got an example for you. What it means to love what the shepherd loves, what the good shepherd is leading you to love, is to put God's loves, God's intention for your life above your own intentions for your life, right? So it is this fancy way of what all the mystics and the monks even call the mortification of flesh. Now, a lot of you maybe we're not talking about flagellation of flesh. I mean, I think that is like taken to the extreme there, where people used to harm themselves so that they could hate their body, and that is not what we're talking about. Instead, what we're talking about is a lot of what Paul talks about in Romans 8, which is he sort of juxtaposes the spirit and the flesh. The flesh wants to do, and essentially what he's saying is the flesh wants to do what the flesh wants to do. Like he's talking about will and ego here, but he's not using that language because he wasn't a modern psychologist, right? So he's talking about will and ego, and his shorthand for that is flesh. So he's like, if you want to live by your flesh, if you want to live by the power of your own ego and your own sort of most base desires, you can do that. But that will lead you to death. It leads nowhere good. But to live by the Spirit, which is to say, to live by the leading of God's power within you and God's presence around you, that is to live. And you know, you can choose. The difficulty is that it is hard to live by the Spirit. It is hard to put God's desires for us above our own fleshly, our own willful, our own egotistical desires, right? Of course it is. But we train ourselves day by day to move ourselves down the totem pole of importance in our lives. And a matter of fact, in the summer that Colleen and I worked at Pine Springs Camp together, the camp that I mentioned in the sermon on Sunday, the motto there at camp for all the staff and the campers is, or I'm sorry, it's not there. It's the Summer's Best 2 Weeks camp that we used to put on when I was a youth director back in the day. But the motto for Summer's Best is I'm third. God's first, others are second, and I'm third. And we taught our staff to live into that, because guess what? When you have this common mission, which is to learn to be like Jesus, and you put others before yourself, because clearly Jesus says he lays down his life for his friends, right? And this is the greatest way to love one another, that we put others before ourselves. That puts us in that third position, but that is a life fully lived. And also it makes camp run a whole lot better when everybody is in it for everybody else and not just for themselves. Let me tell you how this might work out when we're talking to our kids. Lila is doing soccer, and there may come a day, it hasn't come yet because she loves soccer, but there may come a day when she decides she doesn't want to go. There are a lot of times where she doesn't want to do stuff, right? But specifically in team sports, we might tell her that this is a way for her to participate in the team as a way to, you know, not do just what she wants to do, but to be able to put somebody else before her, as a way to live into the, you know, to the vows she took as a member of this team. And we do this in church all the time. We inconvenience ourselves intentionally to serve the whole body, right? To serve everybody, so that everybody is served. I inconvenience myself. And I don't, you know, this isn't something that I feel bad about or that you should feel bad about. It's our way of service. It's not a doormat. It's service. It's power, right? It's love. It is living into the Spirit. And all of these things are good. So the alternative, right, is for Lila, for instance, if she doesn't want to go to soccer, we might frame it up as, well, Lila, you need to go because someday somebody else isn't going to show up or want to show up, and you're going to need to fill in for them, or they're going to need to fill in for you. Like, it's more tit for tat, and that's not what we're talking about. It's not I'm third so that someday I can cash in on those favors, right? It's I'm just third because this is how God made us to be, to put others before ourselves, to learn to love our God and to be shaped by our God's love in such a way that it changes how we live. And that is, by the way, very much to the heart of our mission statement at Trinity, which is discovering God's heart, right? Being captivated and learning this deep love that God has for all, and then being shaped into a deeper, greater sense of service to God and God's world, right? Discovering God's heart, becoming faithful servants. That's the statement. And that is the round and round and round sort of cycle we go through in the life of Christian discipleship, in the life of mortifying the flesh, mortifying my own ego for the sake of the world around me. So I am going to be praying for all of you today, along with myself, that we continue this work of putting to death, Paul says, our fleshly desires so that we can live in the Spirit more fully. So grace and peace to you, my friends. We'll see you next time. Yeah, adios.